Hello and welcome to the first ever, the inaugural FPL Double Up podcast. I'm joined by FPL Heisenberg. Wes, how are things?
Yeah, good mate, how are you?
I'm great. I'm very excited to get this going. My normal podcast sort of setup is where I talk to random people each week, but it'll be nice to build a bit of a relationship and a bit of back and forth with someone.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm looking forward to that. So for people listening, this is an exclusively FPL podcast. You've heard lots of them in the past, I'm sure, but this one's going to be the best one that ever existed. I'm sure you'd agree, Wes.
Yeah, absolutely, John. Not to blow our own trumpets, but yeah, it's going to be amazing.
We hope so. So yeah, I think that for people listening, our sort of goal anyway is there'll be a Tuesday release every single week. That might be subject to change based on European football, based on Monday night games, based on our own lives, but we will imagine it will be every Tuesday. We know consistency is key. We know that's what you look for. So while you're listening, make sure you hit the subscribe button or follow wherever you get your podcasts and you'll be kept up to date. You can also find us both on Twitter and at FPL Double Up for the podcast Twitter for all news around it. We'll also probably do live streams at some stage on YouTube, and we will be repurposing this content for YouTube if you prefer to listen over there. But yeah, Wes, is there anything you'd like to get across to the audience before we get stuck in?
No, I think you've covered everything off. But yeah, I just want to say that, every week we're hopefully going to be helping you guys out with, your captains each week, your transfers, looking at the fixtures, taking questions from you guys on Twitter. We've already had a load of good ones in already for this week, which we're going to come on to sort of near the end of the pod, which I'm looking forward to. And yeah, it's just going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. No, I'm very much looking forward to that myself. And something that we just need to mention before we get into it, which is actually exciting as well. From the word go, we're in partnership with Fanslide on this podcast. So basically what Fanslide is they're the world's first live in-play fantasy football game. So you can play one-off games. It isn't a season-long thing. And basically, you're playing FPL live for one game. There's cash up for grabs. It's free to get, free to enter, free to play, but there's cash up for grabs. Wes, have you given it a go?
Yes. It's a lot of fun. I played it a few times, but the story that sticks out in my mind is Harry Maguire. I had him in my team for when he scored against your boys, against the Irish.
Oh, no.
So yeah, I was absolutely loving that. But I didn't.
You were loving that until we gave you COVID.
Yeah, that's the only way you can stop us.
That's it, yeah. I've played it a couple of times. My last night I got Belgium England. I got that all wrong. Well, I had Belgium at the start, but then I switched to England. I should have just stuck with Belgium. But yeah, basically it's just an in-play FPL game. Go and give it a go. Look them up wherever you get your apps. Fanslide. And here it is, the first ever actual episode of the FPL Double Up podcast. So because it's the first episode, what me and Wes are going to do is we're going to tell you a little bit about ourselves, why you should listen to our opinions on FPL, and yeah, just to give you a bit of a picture about us before you listen. So Wes, do you want to let people know a bit about how you get into FPL and how it's went for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been into FPL for 6-7 years. Played fantasy games before then, like most people, like newspapers back in the day. The Sun Dream Team at uni back in like 2009, 2010 sort of time.
What age are you?
I'm 30 years old, John.
Jeez. Yeah, fair play to you. Alright, sorry.
I'm an old man of the game. I'm an old warhorse.
I'm 27 and I was nowhere near newspapers. I've always been online.
I'm an old man, John.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Wes.
That's fine. So, and in terms of FPL, had obviously the Twitter for about 3 years now, FPL Heisenberg, and yeah, I've had some pretty decent results in the last sort of 6 years of playing, all within the top 32k in that 6 years, so good consistency, and a top finish of 836th, I think it was. So yeah, pretty happy with that, and hoping to replicate that this year.
Tell me this off the top of your head, do you remember in the circa 800 finish?
Yeah.
Did you gain in the last week? What was your highest rank throughout that year? Were you in the top 10 at one stage, or were you in the top 100? Or
I think from memory that was the highest I ever was that week. It was kind of green arrows right up until the end. It was an overall good season because I I even saw some old tweets the other day after trying to find something else, and I saw like when I was obviously bragging on Twitter about doing well throughout that season, and I think even at sort of Christmas time I was top 2k, so I was kind of there or thereabouts the whole time, and I think I remember trying to kick on. I think I took maybe a couple of risks near the end to try and get. I thought, right, I've smashed all my mates in my mini leagues, and at that time I didn't really care about overall rank too much, so I did take a few risks to try and gain that really high rank, but I ended up 836th, which is still pretty good. But yeah.
Well, I can't boast an overall rank history like that. When I actually look at mine now, I'm kind of gutted that I didn't care about it more, because now that I'm in this FPL space and caring about it, it's like, why when I started playing 10 years ago did I not care about my OR, read articles, use data? I just kind of played it for mini leagues with mates and would take like 12-point hits for the crack and didn't care. I'd say, and it might sound kind of peculiar because it's like, okay, your highest finish just happens to be the one that you cared about, but last season, I think it's no secret, a lot of listeners know that I come from kind of the football index and footstock space.
Yeah.
It was last season I started getting quite heavily into data and looking at players and a much more in-depth knowledge of European football as a whole, but in particular the Premier League. And it was the first season I really started listening to FPL podcasts and, optimized chips and all sorts of things, and looking at fixtures and form and the captaincy choices and limiting hits. There's so many things that people are so used to who are probably listening to us, whereas I started doing last year. I got to I think I got 53k or something.
That's decent.
That's decent, top 1%. And what killed me was I'd Ings captained the week that he missed the penalty. There was like a 17-point swing between bonus points and all sorts, but that cost me like 20k.
Oh, missed penalties, absolutely.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But I suppose the bottom line for everyone, that's my sort of history. I've been around for about 10 years. I could talk about this stuff all day. I've been known to do it. I've been known to talk about it all day. And why not team me up with someone who knows what they're on about? And let's see if we can get my OR higher than yours this season, Wes.
Yeah, let's hope we can have a little side bet on it maybe.
Yeah, it is at the minute. Anyway, I think I'm at about 550 and you're at about 750, 700.
Let's not talk about this year, John. Let's just focus on previous
Let's focus
seasons.
on history.
Yeah.
800. Yeah. Well, look, we'll see how that goes. Maybe we can we can look at a bet for the podcast going forward. But moving on, I think that's enough about us, unless there's anything you want to throw in.
No, that's good. I think we've bored people enough with that.
So Wes, moving into the meat and bones of the podcast, you could say what we'll be talking about every week. There's obviously going to be big talking points each week, and the biggest talking point I'd say this week is Salah has COVID. And it kind of ties in nicely with the importance of squad depth, and it's something that's been talked about a lot this year with the risk of something like this happening. Now, Salah has COVID. He'll be out for at least one fixture. Is he out for two? Has that been confirmed?
I'm not sure yet. Obviously, it's going to be different protocols. And so the way I'm kind of looking at Salah in particular and everything is I'm just trying to wait for as much info as possible. So obviously, we're recording this on Tuesday the 16th of November. As far as we know, Salah's going to miss out this week. Doherty news has just broken the last sort of hour of us, last sort of hour, that he's obviously got COVID. Some people will have him in their team. Sorry. So overall, it's just sort of about waiting for as much info as possible, because, like I said, we're not even sure how many games Salah will miss. What are the restrictions in Egypt or wherever? So waiting for as much possible info is the best sort of play there.
Are you a Salah holder?
Yeah, I've got Salah. I've got a few other issues with my team. So who else have I got? I've got Robertson, who may or may not be injured. Obviously, there was a thing with Son about the South Koreans had multiple people testing positive there. I believe he's okay. But it's just so much uncertainty now, and with international breaks, players can come off with injuries like Chilwell, which I know is a lot of people have either got him or was targeting him. He isn't someone I've got yet, but I was potentially looking at for a defender to bring into my team. And if I'd have moved early to beat the price rises this week, I could be stuck with Chilwell, who would be injured. So, like you alluded to earlier, the squad depth is so important this year. So, obviously a couple of weeks ago, I had Roman Sace and Crystal Palace's Mitchell both missed out. I had 5 playing defenders going into the game week, and then in one game week they both miss out. So I had to rely on my bench, and I got Lamptey off my bench for a goal against Spurs. Mates of mine was lambasting me for being lucky, but my response to that is I made my own luck there by, instead of going ultra cheap on my defence, someone not playing a 3.9 million defender, I spent that little bit extra so I could have that security, and I put myself in a position to get lucky essentially.
Yeah, I think the defence, that's maybe another talking point, but mine's been very sort of, it's the weirdest year for defenders for me I've had, because I've had other fires to fight, and it's kind of sat from the start of the season, but they're all in that kind of 4.5 bracket, and a couple of them are solid, but they're very inconsistent because obviously we've been lacking clean sheets.
Yeah.
But moving back onto that kind of Salah being out, would you be, obviously you're going to wait for more information, but let's say you're at the point where you want to make the change. Who would you be bringing in? Now, I have Bruno. I've had Bruno for weeks. I basically had KDB for the first week or two, and I think when he got injured, I got rid of him for Bruno, and I've held him, so that paid off just before the international break. But
yeah,
I suppose the two big contenders are Bruno and KDB. There are others out there, are other options, but who would you be thinking?
Yeah. So another option, so obviously both viable options. Bruno, KDB, both excellent assets, both on penalties, both taking sort of free kicks, both sort of heavily involved in everything their teams do. Probably their team's best player, and that creative attacking force. So yeah, they're both great options. If you're looking, it depends what you're looking to do really. So if you're looking to do 2 transfers and you want to free up some cash, something like Ziyech, probably butchered the pronunciation there.
No, I think you did it well.
For Chelsea, Ziyech is another good option. I think that saves you around 4.3 million ish, maybe a little bit less than that, 4.1, something like that. So that frees up a lot of cash. So if you have got like a budget defence like you've got, you can maybe look at reinvesting that money into the likes of Chilwell, assuming he is actually fit, of course, or maybe upgrading a striker or something like that. So depends what you want to do really. If you want to stay at that sort of premium range. Also, the other option, obviously we spoke about squad depth. If you've got a decent sub this week, and say if Salah was your only problem, you might have 3 good players on your bench anyway that you would actually, quite happy to play them, but you can obviously squeeze them in. Why not start them? I've got Sojcek currently. Obviously, he's a cheap midfielder. He hasn't done that much this season, but he did get a goal last game against Fulham. He was sat on my bench for that game. But that just shows that he can pop up with a goal and get you like 8 or 9 points. And then if Salah, because it's COVID, it's not like a long-term injury. We know that he's likely to miss 1 game, maybe 2. He is expensive to carry on your bench, of course. So it does depend on your squad. But if you have a decent bench, you could just hold Salah if you want him long-term. Especially, I think Liverpool's fixtures get a bit easier in a couple of game weeks as well. So that's something to think about. If you want Salah long term, do you really want to be using a transfer on him now and then a transfer to bring him straight back in? And especially as he's gone up in price, if you've had him from the start of the season, you're going to lose out there because his selling price right now for us who had him from the start is 12.2, I believe. But we'll have to buy him back at 12.4. So there's a lot of things to consider there.
Well, I've been kind of bold and going without Salah. I think I had him for that opening game week. I didn't captain him because I'm a chump. I think I captained Aubameyang, and we all know how that went. I'm pretty sure it went pretty bad anyway, and I haven't had him since just because I wanted Bruno and KDB. I just kind of had that before the season.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm a little bit rigid in my ways. Maybe I've got some biases from the likes of Football Index, but I just really wanted Bruno and I really wanted KDB in my team, almost as season holders. But Salah has been in absolutely amazing form, and I'd be in a really tough position if I had him now. I don't know what I would do.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because there's definitely an argument between... like you've done, you've gone for Bruno, who's 1.5 million cheaper in terms of their starting price.
Yeah.
Maybe the gap's even a little bit higher now. So you've saved that money and probably got extra points by reinvesting that into other areas of your team. And since obviously Salah got a hat-trick week 1, and after then he's done well, obviously. But since then he's scored 5 goals and got 1 assist in 7 games. So it's not unbelievable where you have to have him. He hasn't been essentially, it's not like his first season at Liverpool where he obviously got an insane amount of goals and assists. What was it? Something like 32 goals and 12 assists.
Yeah, it was like Cristiano Ronaldo-esque.
Yeah, absolutely.
The numbers he was putting up.
He's not putting up if you take the hat-trick out of it in game week 1, he isn't putting up those sort of numbers. And even on the assist front, he's only got the 1 assist as well. In terms of his underlying stats, he's still right up there. Him and Kane are both smashing it. But obviously for you've gone without him, and I don't think you've been punished that badly. No,
I haven't. And I mean, thankfully that Bruno, I think it was a 17-point haul, justifies a decision like that. If Bruno had got a 5-pointer or something, you'd be starting to look at yourself. But yeah, Is there, so like in terms of squad depth as a whole, is there anything else we want to discuss here? I'm in a kind of weird position, and I don't know how many other people are in this position. This is quite niche, so we'll only give it maybe 30 seconds. But I have Martinez in goal, like everyone does. But my second keeper is Nyland, and I also have Grealish. So I've been wanting to transition to an Aston Villa defender, like Konsa or someone, and haven't been able to because I'm blocked by an injured second goalkeeper. But I don't want to waste the transfer on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and likewise for me, I've got the two Southampton keepers. So obviously our tactic there was, you get the playing goalkeeper. If they come down with COVID or a minor injury, you've still got a backup to come in and play. No sort of rotation, selection headaches each week. You just play your keeper. And McCarthy and Martinez have both started at 4.5 million, both got a few clean sheets, maybe 3 or 4 each, something like that. And but in terms of, and that's also blocked when I had Danny Ings. If I did want another Southampton player, not that I did necessarily, but if I wanted, say, the likes of Ward-Prowse or Kyle Walker-Peters, I couldn't do that either. For yourself, yeah.
It's the first time it's happened to me is the reason I bring it up.
Yeah, no, it's
very niche, but it's the first time in my FPL life that I've had this issue.
It's not as niche as you think. I know a lot of people, obviously I'm heavily involved in FPL and in WhatsApp groups with 50 people, like multiple WhatsApp groups, and people have had this issue where they've got both Villa keepers and they've got Grealish, and then all of a sudden they see the Arsenal game, they see Watkins bagging a brace, they see Barkley playing out with skin, they see the defenders getting another clean sheet, and there's value there. There's Target, who got an assist I think against Arsenal, and he's only like around 4.5 million. So it's the Aston Villa conundrum is definitely one on that other people are going to be faced with like you. So I think if you're on a wild card, you could potentially look at keeping Martinez, but then going for a different backup and just risking it in terms of if Martinez did come down with COVID or whatever, then you'd simply have to accept maybe not having a playing keeper. So it's a slight risk.
That's the issue here.
Yeah.
The big issue here is that Nyland's injured anyway, so it's like there's no benefit to having him there. But do you want to burn 4 points, get them out?
Good point.
That's the killer.
Yeah.
I just seen it actually. Sorry, his contract was terminated. Nyland's. I didn't realize that was the issue. Maybe he went in a transfer. I didn't realize why he was gone. I just thought he was injured. I haven't really looked into him. He's not someone I care particularly about. But his contract was terminated a month ago.
Yeah. So in that case, you haven't got. Obviously, it's a little bit different to my scenario where I have the playing backup. But like you said, you don't even have that playing backup now. So yeah, I think it is a fire that you'd need to put out because you wouldn't have a second playing goalkeeper. I was thinking a lot of people have got this scenario, but they've got Jed Steer instead, who is the Villa number 2 at the minute. But then even with him, Tom Heaton's coming back from injury. So if you're in the boat of having maybe Nyland or Steer, maybe it is worth that -4. Or if you're lucky enough to have a full playing squad with no other issues, then you could use a transfer to sort that out. But generally speaking, I don't like the idea of using a transfer on your backup non-playing keeper. I think you can live without the likes of, you've got the Villa keeper and you've got Grealish. Do you really need another Villa defender? Probably not. They've been a bit hit and miss, Villa. Obviously this year they've improved a lot, but they've also let in 4 goals against Southampton at home. So that would have been a fixture where you'd have possibly doubled up there, and then both your keeper and your defender would have got close to 0 or 1 point. So I think you can live without that, and there's obviously other strikers to choose apart from Watkins, and there's other midfielders apart from Barkley. So I wouldn't. I'd let go of that dream of having the Villa triple up, and until you have a chance to wild card or have a luxury of a free transfer going spare. That's how I'd play it.
Sticking on that kind of Villa theme, just to transition into maybe a discussion about fixtures, I think on paper Villa have some of the best fixtures. I don't know how they look on fixture tickers and stuff, but just looking at this here on the FPL website, their next 6 fixtures, 7 fixtures.
Sea of green.
It's all 2s and 3s. It's all greens and greys.
Yeah, so absolutely. So yeah, Villa, their fixtures are probably the pick of the bunch in terms of what you can get. You can get value from their players, and they're coming into a good fixture run. They've got Brighton at home, West Ham away.
Is Jack Grealish must have?
No one for me is must have, but he's getting as close to be as you can, especially for the price. I like to reserve the term must have for seasons when Salah had that huge season. So at the minute, Grealish, could you survive without Grealish with players of similar price? Like if you had Ziyech now over him, could he score similar? Probably. So that's why I wouldn't call him must have, but he is, if I was wildcarding, I do already have Grealish, but if I was wildcarding, I'd be definitely having Grealish in and building around that, But yeah, like you said, the fixtures for Villa, just running through a few of those very quickly. Brighton at home, West Ham away, Newcastle home, Wolves away, Burnley home, West Brom away, then Palace at home. So what's that? 7 fixtures where they're not playing any of the traditional Big Six teams. They're playing a newly promoted side in West Brom. So yeah, that's looking very tasty. And their form, Jack Grealish, in terms of how he's playing for both club and country from a football perspective, not just FPL, he's in kind of the form of his life. He looks nothing short of sensational, and he's now backing that up with goals and assists. So yeah, really like Jack Grealish. In terms of some other fixtures, I know a lot of us, including me, have doubled up on Son and Kane. A few people I know have even gone for the triple up with the likes of Reguilon. So again, butchering the pronunciation.
This is going to be a running theme
Yeah,
where you butcher names, and I think I know how to say them and
Yeah.
probably butcher them worse. I would go Reguilon,
Yeah.
but I could be wrong.
No, you can correct me. You've obviously got a greater knowledge of the European football scene, and you're a bit more cultured than myself. But yeah, so some people have gone for the triple up there, and Spurs' fixtures are turning now in terms of they're playing some of the what we'd consider traditionally on paper the harder fixtures. However, so they've got, just to run through them for the listeners who don't necessarily know, they've got Man City at home, Chelsea away, Arsenal at home in the next 3. Then they go Crystal Palace away, but then it's Liverpool away. But from an attacking point of view, I always think Man City can be got at. They have improved this year defensively with the signing of Diaz. But I still, am I going into that game thinking Man City are going to get a clean sheet? No. If Tottenham score, who's likely to be involved? Son and Kane. Likewise, Chelsea away, they've improved massively defensively. So, yeah, will it be hard for them to score there? It will be. But again, I can see Spurs scoring in every fixture because the defences this year haven't been up to it. Like I said, Chelsea have improved massively there, so that will be a tough game for them. But then Arsenal at home, people were waxing lyrical about Arsenal's defence, and then Jack Grealish, Watkins and Barkley just absolutely tore them a new arsehole. Was all over them, could have scored more. Grealish had one cleared off the line. Leno saved an amazing shot from Grealish. A goal disallowed for offside in the first half of the Villa game. Don't know if you saw that game where John McGinn, I think it was, absolutely smashed it home. But
I've seen that.
Barkley was in the line of sight, yeah. So my point about that is Arsenal could have conceded six there quite easily against Villa. So are they going to be able to keep Son and Kane out? I'm not too sure. And then Palace away is an okay fixture. Liverpool away, their whole defence is pretty much crocked. Joe Gomez, long-term injury. Van Dijk, long-term injury. Alexander-Arnold's likely to... Oh, actually, that's a little while away. He might be back. But in terms of keeping clean sheets, it's mainly your centre-backs and your defensive mids, isn't it? Rather than the full-backs, in my opinion, anyway.
Particularly in Liverpool when they're so attacking,
Yeah.
and Trent is not known for his defensive abilities.
Trent and Robbo fly forward, so if they did that, Tottenham could expose them on the counter-attack like they've done so many times this season. Liverpool's high line, Son in behind with his pace, Kane dropping into number 10, threading balls through because Kane's passing ability is just sensational, and Son's just a lethal finisher, pacey. So my point I'm trying to raise there is, like, yes, you look at those fixtures and they look horrible. I wouldn't like any of Spurs' defenders, but do I think Son and Kane can still keep scoring? Yes, I do. For my personal team, will I look to move one of them on? Although I've just said all that, I possibly might, just for in terms of freeing up some funds. So, Son to Ziyech might free up $1 million or whatever.
Well, this brings up, and I know I'm kind of butting in here, Wes, but this is exactly the boat I'm in, and I think a lot of managers are in. I have Kane, I have Son.
Yeah.
The fixtures look grim. Whenever you break them down like that and actually look at the fixtures, I think there's a real case to be had for keeping at least one of these guys.
Yeah.
When a lot of people are like, get out of Spurs, the fixtures are terrible.
Yeah, not for
But
me.
like Harry Kane on penalties in arguably the most free scoring team in the league. I haven't looked at the results to back that up. Maybe I'm wrong. But there is a real case to keep one of them. I would be more inclined to keep Kane, I think, with the penalties, albeit he's 1.6 million more expensive. At least that's the value that's shown in my team.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know what he is in the market.
Penalties this season, yeah, absolutely. And sorry to butt in, but just want to say, penalties this season obviously huge. We all know about VAR giving a shitload of penalties. We've got, in terms of every week, I look and do my research, obviously, for the content I produce elsewhere. And I'm just seeing every week it's Kane and Salah. If you look over the course of the season, those two are, all the metrics, sort of shots on target, shots in the box, XG, expected assists. Kane is like top for expected assists. He's ahead of the likes of De Bruyne, who, okay, has missed some games. He's ahead of all these brilliant midfielders who we associate with creating chances. He's right up there, Kane, for for creating chances. Add on to that, obviously, his goal threat. We know how good he can score. One shot, one goal. Kane can be. Sorry, one decent chance, one goal, or even long ranges, tap-ins, headers. Kane can do absolutely everything on the football pitch. So, yeah, I'm not scared of Kane in terms of fixtures. Son, his numbers haven't been as good. He's been more clinical. So, especially at the start, like that Southampton game, I think he scored from every shot. And his percentage of one stage of the season, he'd taken 14 shots and scored 8 goals, which is insanely high. So, if you're a kind of stats guy, you'd kind of say that Son's numbers are unsustainable. I kind of think that his numbers are slightly higher because of how his high quality of finishing.
It's like Jamie Vardy. He defies XG.
Yeah, absolutely. Jamie Vardy's another one that forget XG with him. Just know that he's a proven goal scorer. Give him a chance, and as long as Leicester are creating some chances and he's getting the penalties, he'll get the goals. I brought him in this week. He missed a penalty for me, as did Lookman. I really just want to moan about that right now because about 10 days on, or however long it is, I'm still hurting. The Lookman one especially, I've been banging on about him on Twitter.
Look, man, you just have to get over it.
I don't know if I can. I'm trying.
Did you see what I did there?
I did.
It was really poor, and I know it's been done everywhere else. I just had to do it. Ugh, disgusted at myself. Anyway, we'll move on fastly from that, I'd say.
Yeah.
But bottom line is, from after chatting about that kind of squad depth and this and that, and I've got two. Basically, my situation is I have 2 free transfers. I've 0.2 in the bank.
Yeah.
I'm thinking there's nothing majorly wrong. I'm not going to bore you with my team, but I'm going to play it by ear on the Chilwell front.
Yeah.
But what could be happening this week for me is just go Son to ZH, bank some cash, and keep a transfer and roll it a week. Because a big thing I'm doing this season, and it goes back to that squad depth front, another way you can kind of protect yourself is always having those transfers available. Yeah. So unless it's absolutely necessary to make transfers, I'm really being strict with myself this year in waiting until the deadline, because you never know when someone's going to get COVID. And I'm also trying to bank transfers if I think it's even remotely viable to do so.
That is an excellent strategy. Banking transfers is something that I can't speak highly enough of. Obviously, there's caveats to that. If your team's a complete shithole, then obviously you need to sort it out. However,
if you're not getting 11 starting players, you have to. But I mean, if you know that you're going to have 11 starters, or maybe then there's even a case to make sure you have one backup.
Yeah, one backup, 11 starters, and you're looking good. So, for example, with my team, so far this season, I've only taken 1 hit. I've only moved early for transfers on 1 occasion as well. Most, like you, have been waiting to the deadline, been quite precious with my transfers, and because I was going to hopefully save my transfer this week, the week just gone, but Ings got injured. However, talking more generally, saving a transfer when you can is excellent, and even having a bit of money in the bank is also handy. But yeah, like you say, you can protect yourself there. If you get a couple of international break injuries, John, you've sat there with 2 free transfers. You can make 3 transfers maybe, completely transform your team, only to cost a -4. And you're absolutely laughing. So yeah, that's a really strong strategy, and one I can't speak highly enough of, to be honest.
And I think if people even, because in other seasons there's always that debate about rolling transfers and taking hits, and I remember I talked about this in a stream before, and someone was saying I took -96 in hits and it was my highest ever finish.
Yeah,
there is a point for it, but I think this season of all seasons on the transfer front, they're like gold because Salah can happen, and that's exactly why they're gold.
And exactly why waiting this year. If you're an aggressive manager, again, that can work. It's not a style I've used too often by being super aggressive, but like you say, there's plenty of managers out there who are super aggressive, taking -4 virtually every week, and they climb the ranks and do well. And absolutely, it's a viable strategy. But if you're going to do that, I still can't stress enough waiting close to the deadline if you can, because this season, like you said, especially, we've got the COVID factor. We've got all the training ground injuries that can normally happen, or the Champions League injuries, or the international break injuries, but we've also got COVID, which can mean you don't even have to have COVID to be forced to self-isolate or whatever. So yeah, saving those transfers till nearer the deadline is key, and rolling if your team's in good shape, don't make a transfer for the sake of it. Roll that transfer over. 2 free transfers. It's going to be beneficial in one. I'd say that in any season, but this season especially.
Absolutely. Well, Wes, I think we're ready to move on to some questions, unless there's anything else you wanted to discuss.
No, I'm looking forward to the questions. Yeah.
Okay. Well, look, just to annoy listeners before we do so, this is our first week of the podcast. People at home mightn't realise how important the reviews are. If you happen to be listening on Apple, if you're listening on something else, but your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your mum, your dad, your dog has an Apple iPhone, get on Apple Podcasts and leave us a review. If you can make it 5-star, even better. And yet, make sure you leave your Twitter handle or Facebook name or somewhere we can find you, because in the future we will be running review-based competitions. So if you stick it in now, you'll be eligible for them all, and it'll help us climb some rankings. So yeah, the reviews are huge, and make sure you hit the subscribe button. Now there's the self-plugging out of the way. On to some questions. So first up is from Francisco Bordalo. He says, if you only have 10 men available, should I hit or FH?
So
should I hit? Oh, should he take a -4 or?
Yeah, so what he means there is, should he take a transfer hit and take a -4 to get up to 11 men, or should he use the free hit chip? So I'll take this one if you want, John.
Work away, yeah.
Yeah, so for this one, if you've got 10 men available, I would take a -4 hit to get up to 11 players. I wouldn't use a free hit chip because that's a powerful tool later on in the season when there's double game weeks or blank game weeks. So just save that chip, wait for the doubles and the blanks that are going to occur later on in the season. But if you've only got 10 men, then a -4 hit is, as long as they get appearance points, it's only really a -2. And on top of that, you've got the upside of that player could get a goal and assist and get 13 points, and therefore you'd be up 9 points on your hit already. And you've also sorted your team out for the long term, especially if you've taken out the likes of, a Danny Ings who's got a longer term injury or something. You've actually sorted out your team and you're up on the points. Whereas that's
a really... Sorry, Wes, there's a small delay there and I butted in.
That's fine.
It's a really important thing that I maybe hadn't considered, stupidly, and it's probably just me. It's that if he's not playing and he's not playing and you've only got 10 men, it is only a -2 hit if you pick someone who gets 90 minutes or 61 minutes or whatever. So... yeah, it's only a -2 hit if you pick the right player.
Only,
so look at it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's only -2 if they blank. But if you don't bring anyone in, that slot in your team is going to come up with a 0. 100% it's going to come up with a 0. But if you bring someone in, you've got the chance of them getting... It's endless what they can get. If you can have a crazy week like we saw with Son and Kane earlier in the season where they bag a 22 point or whatever it was. Obviously, those sort of situations are rare. But what I'm getting at, you bring someone in for a 4-point hit, they play the 60 minutes, that's 2 points. All they need to get is, if they're a defender, just a clean sheet in the game, you're up on the points. If they're a midfielder, just an assist, or same with a striker, just one contribution, which is doable, you break even or even make points. So yeah, for Francisco's question, I would take a -4 hit, I'd save my free hit, and I'd get 11 men available.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. FPL TFL Octavian has asked, shall we keep Salah or move on to KDB? Bruno, we kind of covered this, but is there anything you want to throw in? Or I don't actually know if we really covered this, the crux of the matter.
So shall we keep Salah or move on to KDB Bruno? So the usual caveats apply. It does depend on your squad. Like I mentioned earlier, blah, blah, blah. If you have players on the bench who are going to come in, then it's different. However, taking this question in isolation, it's definitely a viable strategy, but I would just say to that, think about who you want long term. If you want Salah for the next 6 to 10 game weeks, try and keep him and use a bench player. If you want the likes of KDB or Bruno longer term for the next 6-7 game weeks, and they do have good fixtures, and obviously they're premium players on penalties, and we know what those guys can do, then yeah, absolutely go for it. I wouldn't be scared to go without Salah these days. Like I alluded to earlier, he's not putting up the sort of figures he did in his first season. He's still a great asset. But KDB and Bruno, they're both cheaper. They're both good options. Could they outscore Salah? Absolutely. It could backfire. And obviously there's the fear factor of a lot of people owning Salah and captaining him every week. So you've got to be quite a strong player to do that. But yeah, it's an absolutely viable strategy. Just think about which of those three you want longer term. And it's also to move off Salah is using up a transfer. So if you already have him, it's sort of more weighted towards holding him, because then you can use your transfers on other areas of your squad, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think Bruno is blown quite hot and cold.
Yeah,
I think KDB, Man City haven't been firing, but I think a lot of that's down to KDB being injured, because he's such an elite player. For me, and this is an opinion just for people listening, so you know where I stand, I do think KDB is the best attacking midfielder in the world, and when he's fit and firing, he can get you goal contributions in every single game. He can get points from everywhere. He's on set pieces. He's here. He's there. He's everywhere. Yeah. And I just think even his reintroduction to that City team could see an uptick in their goal output. So yeah, you're also saving money on both of them compared to Salah. So if I was to switch to one, I had to pick one. Now, saying this as a Bruno holder and not a KDB holder, I would probably actually go for KDB. I haven't checked. I assume he's still fit after that Belgian game. I haven't checked, but again, it all depends on your squad depth and everything else, because Salah is a great player all the same, and if it is only a week and you can keep the transfer, it might be worth doing that. So again, this is one of those questions that trying to answer it in isolation is so tough because of all the extra factors.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. So yeah, take our answer there and apply it to the caveats of your own team there if you can. But yeah, like you were saying, John, actually it's really interesting that if I was picking a football team, not an FPL team, and I could pick any players like from the Premier League, I'd get in like Kane, KDB, Bruno before I'd get in the likes of Salah. Salah's an amazing player for fantasy, you know, selfish player who gets goals and he does create chances, to be fair. But in terms of ability, I just think for me, KDB and Kane are higher. However, I will caveat that with saying that essentially doesn't matter for FPL. It's whoever, if you've got a player who's scoring 30 tap-ins a season, that's better than someone who scores, you know, 20 long ranges and runs the game. The likes of KDB and can sometimes, if Pep deploys him in a sort of deeper role, he can sometimes, you know, dictate the play, be man of the match, but then not get you the FPL points. So it's just one to watch out for. Just make sure Pep is playing him in more of that sort of number 10 rather than that deep lying role that he has taken in. Maybe that's back in the past, to be fair, but it's just one to watch. Make sure your players are playing in those attacking positions and getting the FPL points.
Wes, we might have our first in joke.
Go on.
I'm going to see how this goes. We might have our first in joke. Have you got the questions in front of you?
Yeah.
Have you got the next one after Octavian?
Yeah.
I'm going to make you try the name and I'm going to give it my go, and then he can let us know who was correct.
Jesus. Okay. So it's from Timotheus Timowski.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Timotheus. Timotheus is what I'm gonna go with. Timotheus Timowski.
Yeah, that sounds
so better. Timotheus, if that's your name, you can let us know.
Yeah, let us know.
Let us know who got it right. If not, spell it out phonetically, let us know. But his question is, who's a better option to keep for the long term, Kane or Son, or keep them both? Again, we kind of referenced this because it's a big talking point of the week. For me, if I had to pick one, personally I'm picking Kane. Depends if you need to redistribute that 1.5 million or so elsewhere in your team, but I think Kane for me is the pick. But again, Son gets that extra point for each goal, and Kane has been playing like a lot more of that kind of false nine, dropping deeper and feeding Son in. So I can see the credentials for both. I just think there's a wealth of cheap midfield options that you could replace Son with, like Grealish and Ziyech. I don't know if there's anyone performing in the forward sort of bracket anywhere close to Kane at the minute. So that would be my logic. What do you think?
Yeah, I won't go on too much about this one because, like I said, we spoke about it earlier in the pod, and I'd virtually echo everything you said there. The only part I disagree with you on there is, like you said, there's cheaper midfielders than Son doing the business as well, but there's also there's quite a lot of striker options this year in the likes of Watkins, Calvert-Lewin, Ings when he's fit, which might not be too much longer. Jimenez could come back to form. He's not really doing it at the moment. There's loads I forgot. Jamie Vardy. So there are striker options. However, on the whole, what you said is I pretty much echo that. Yeah.
I was going to try and come back and even counter you, but I'm looking at it there. The only thing I'd say is that Kane has 80 points so far. The next best striker is 59.
Yeah.
Midfielder Son is 74 and Salah's in 67, but it's a different thing altogether. I do get what you're saying.
There's definitely options. There's definitely options in midfield that, like you said. So I do agree with everything you said, but I just do think that you could easily put 3 good strikers in without Kane.
Yeah, I think I'm actually going completely back on what I said because I think I've really overlooked the likes of Bamford, Wilson, Watkins.
Yeah, exactly.
Even Adams is getting some goals.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a lot of guys there who are very cheap.
Yeah, in seasons gone by, it's felt like we haven't really had that sort of last season, especially that sort of 6 to 6 million sort of price range for forwards. The sort of cheaper forwards has been a real dearth of them, but right now there's a few doing the business. However, over the longer term, you can see the likes of Bamford regressing. You can see the likes of Callum Wilson because of how Newcastle don't create that many chances, so he could regress. Whereas Kane, I do think is going to be a good pick all season. So yeah, I think we kind of agree with each other on the whole there, but there are just some sort of caveats to look at.
Do you know who I used to love? Speaking of cheap forwards, Michu. Do you remember him?
Yeah, he's an old school FPL pick. He's a big fan favourite. Michu. I liked Charlie Austin a few years ago in his
Yes, he
QPR
was my
days.
next.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I used to have Zamora as well back in the day, but he was a bit
He was
more
like
hot and cold.
He was like at one stage he was like a 4.5 million. So if you was going for like a 3.52, I think when he was at QPR, maybe you're talking a bit further back. But yeah, at QPR, I think he was a 4.5 that you could kind of have if you were looking to spread your funds, kind of like this year's Brewster.
Yeah. Well, look, we'll move on to the next question we have. It's from Baron. Would you consider a free hit this week? I think again that one's very. There's a lot more to that question than meets the eye.
Yeah, it's very, very hard to answer because it's very squad dependent. So I'd say if you can only field 7 or 8 players without, so say you've used your free transfer already and you've only got 7 or 8 players. So therefore, to get a full 11 players, you'd need to take either a -12 or -16. Then I'd free hit. You've also got to think so say the players in your squad, if the ones who are missing out are only short term ones, the likes of Salah, and the people with COVID or Chilwell. Say if Chilwell's a minor injury and Andrew Robertson might be a minor injury. If you want all these players longer term, then a free hit's good because you can obviously change your team for 1 week. And then the following week, the squad that you actually want bounces back in, rather than taking, say, a -12, getting rid of the likes of Salah, Chilwell, etc. Those boys come back, and you think, oh shit, I actually want these boys in my team. I need to transfer them back in. So, yeah. Does that answer it?
Yeah, I think it does. It's one of those, if you've no wild card and you've only 6 players available, you kind of have to take the hit.
Yeah.
Take a free hit because you're not going to take a 16, 20 point hit, are you?
No.
But there's kind of a balancing act there. Do you take a -8? You probably do. Do you take a -12?
A -8
and again,
yeah. If you've got like 9 players,
it depends on the
playing,
nature of those injuries, as you say.
Yeah.
If it's a 2-week job, great. If it's a 6-week Danny Ings sort of thing, or however long he's going to be,
yeah,
you need to consider it a bit more strongly. But
yeah, 100%.
Jamie Barr, do you think there's any chance of a second wildcard being allowed or a period of unlimited free transfers if there's an extended break or massive COVID cases? So sort of akin to the end of last season.
Yeah, so it is a chaos. So obviously last season there was the first lockdown in the UK, which saw, Premier League didn't play for March to June roughly. So, and at that point FPL did allow unlimited free transfers when they relaunched the game. So if a period like that happens again, it will, but I can't see the Premier League being suspended again personally. I think there's kind of good protocols in place to get the games playing without fans and a lot of testing. If there's a lot of players who go down with COVID, I don't think FPL are going to add in, because there's a load of mass COVIDs that they're going to do anything about it. But that's just my opinion. But essentially, I won't worry too much about that question. If it happens, it happens. It's going to be the same for everyone, and we can, judge it accordingly. But I wouldn't be expecting that to, no.
Yeah, I wouldn't be strategizing around it in terms of keeping wild cards or using wild cards at the thought of an extra wild card. Or I just play the game as if football's going to keep happening, because I think the way it is now, there's just so much on the line financially, and I think even the likes of the government recognise the importance of the likes of football as an outlet for people who are cooped up in their houses.
Yeah.
So I think they'd almost really try their hardest to keep stuff like that going, like the likes of the Masters, the amount of an outlet that was for people mentally for the last 4 or 5 days before we record this. I think sport's a really great place for people and a way for people to switch off and be entertained.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a celeb's not going to cut it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think they're going to keep going with it. And also, I think, kind of loosely based on that question, but the way to sort of plan for this, so sort of in previous seasons, I might have had 2 4.0 million defenders. I might have had a really cheap midfielder who doesn't really get much, but this year I've kind of just upgraded those slots slightly. So I've gone for a soy check rather than a 4.5 midfielder, so I've spent 0.5 more there. I've gone for an extra defender, the likes of Lamptey, like I said earlier, 4.5 that he started at, over the likes of a 4.0. So I've probably spent about $1 million more than I usually would on my bench, but it just means my bench is a bit stronger. I can cope a little bit more with COVID than I would have been sort of used my previous tactics.
Yeah, very good. Well, look, we'll move on to our final question. From it's either Cherry or Kerry Dovey. Is 3-3-2 a system likely to get me big points? In international breaks doing wonders for my squad choices. So
that's a classic Kerry question. That
someone's having a heartbreaker here.
Yeah. So again, I mean, yeah, you could actually get some. Sometimes there are cases where players play with, you don't even have a full squad out, and the players you do have hit it well. Obviously, it's a bit tongue in cheek from Kerry, that one. But yeah, I'd say we've kind of touched this earlier, haven't we? If you've got 3-3-2 would be 8 players and a goalkeeper 9 players. I'd probably take a -8 in that scenario. Get 11 players, play him, and then out of the -8, there's 2 players you bring in. If one of them blanks and one of them gets a goal, you've already broken even. Or if one of them gets a clean sheet and the other one blanks, like a defender gets a clean sheet and the other one blanks, again, you've broken even at least. So it's kind of weighted in your favour to take the -4s in that -8, in that scenario. One other question did come through that I didn't actually send you, John. I just want to touch upon that. It's from FPL Vobinho. Again, it's a guy I know quite well. Arwin Vobe. Again, I'm probably butchering your name. But he says, is it worth investing big on City to attack fixtures, even though their form hasn't been that explosive? So yeah, it's a really good question. So you always think of Man City as a team, they've been blitzing teams for scoring a lot of goals for the previous 2-3 seasons under Pep. So you kind of always think Man City attacking us, Man City going to score 5 or 6 in, against the smaller teams every game. It used to feel like, but obviously this season they've been getting a 1-0 win away at Sheffield United, and they was actually kind of watching the last few minutes of that. They were kind of content with that. So there, and the numbers back that up as well. They're sort of, you compare previous seasons to this season, their attacking numbers aren't as good. But like you alluded to earlier, KDB has either been not at his best. He's been kind of tired. I know he said he was exhausted and he was tired during the international break, the previous international break. So with him, if he returns to top form, they get the likes of Aguero back and some other attacking options that they've been missing, and they could then become that explosive force again. And then if you do that, you could be ahead of the curve. You've got your City attackers in your team already, whilst everyone else will be, taking minus hits to get them in.
Well, I'd be tempted to go take out my Werner, take out my Son, pick a budget striker and stick in KDB. I'm very tempted to do that.
Yeah, that's an option.
Because I really do back City with KDB playing. Now, I don't know how much game time he got for Belgium. I really wasn't following international football. Ireland were put out of the Euros and I just don't care, so I'm just not watching it. It's something that I've completely missed, but I think I would be surprised if City don't come back to some sort of form with them there, because they'll be literally back to the same team. Obviously Aguero's out, but he's always out.
Yeah.
Ferran Torres has been playing well up there when Jesus isn't in.
Yeah, and Jesus has done well
on one side. Yeah, with Mahrez, who's one of these players who can score you 20 points, but he more than likely score you 1 most weeks.
Yeah.
Foden, they've just got so much talent there. Cancelo's looking really creative at the back. He's also an option who a lot of people
he's a great
consider
option
for their defence. But I do back City. I'm gonna put this down here. I really back City, and you can laugh at me in a few weeks if they haven't had a 4-0.
Yeah.
But I think they're gonna
absolutely, especially
come back.
The type of manager Pep Guardiola is, the type of players he's got at his disposal. Once like you said, KDB's back, etc. I mean, they're not gonna go for I can't see the whole season going on where they're the kind of 1-0 team, 1-1 team, or maybe the odd 2-0 or something like that, and I just can't see it where their attacking numbers don't get back to where they were, and therefore the goals start flowing. You see the Sterling's getting, those sick passing moves that they do that ends up with Sterling just tapping it in, passes across the goal for easy goals, KDB scoring from, the edge of the box, goals from corners, from the defenders, from KDB crosses. So yeah, I think City will return, but I wouldn't... Personally, just because I'm quite a cautious manager, I'm not going to sort of, just pump 2 City attacking players in when there are other options who are doing well. I'll probably just, I want to see them. They need to prove it to me that they are actually returning to that, and then I'll jump. Then I'll act quick.
Yeah, that's fair. I think wait and see. I wouldn't be taking hits to get them in, but I might because I've got free transfers maybe, but it's probably better for me to hold on to those, to be honest with you. But I think another side of it is they'll probably smell blood now. Liverpool have been, injuries everywhere.
Yeah.
Salah's out now. Maybe they want to just stick their foot in the throat. Maybe this will G them on, and they'll come to the fore now and start actually playing, because the league is well within their grasp.
Yeah.
With Liverpool with just riddled. So we'll see how that pans out. But Wes, I think that's about it for this week, unless there's anything else you want to cover.
No, that was it. That was a lot of fun, John. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I hope people listening enjoyed. Just to reiterate, if you did, do us a favour, let us know on Twitter. Make sure you follow at FPL Double Up, because get your questions in for next week's episode. We're going to try and stick to Tuesdays. You'll see us tweet about it. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you leave a review. And other than that, the last thing they need to do, or what we'd like them to do, what we think would be good for them, is to check out Fanslide. Go and give it a download. We mentioned it at the start. If you're wondering what it's about, download their app wherever you get your apps and give it a go. I think they've got the England game coming up on Wednesday.
Yeah, England versus Iceland on Wednesday. They've got, so that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, so go and give that a go and let us know what you think about Fanslide. Wes, I'll talk to you next week.
Pleasure.
See you later.